The sponsor of today's interview is College Soccer's Next. College Soccer's Next is the #1 college soccer recruiting service focused on helping aspiring prospective student athletes achieve their dreams of playing college soccer. Some of the services that they're able to provide, I got to read them off the list, include a college soccer mentor who's gone through the recruiting process firsthand, a strength and conditioning coach, a sports nutrition coach, a professional highlight video editor, as well as a personal evaluation and strategic proven plan of action, as well as much, much more to make your dreams of playing college soccer turn into a reality. Book your free consultation call today down in the description at collegesoccersnext.com. Take your first steps at earning your college soccer scholarship today. Enjoy the episode, folks. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kickerball Podcast. I had to go on a little bit of a hiatus. I won't lie, the final exams were getting rough. I won't lie to you. I don't know what they're going to come back as, but we don't have to get into that right now. George Marks from Charlotte FC, Crown Legacy FC, and the Las Vegas Lights on loan with them for a few matches is here to join us. I talked with him. I just followed him on Instagram, and I figured, you know what? If I could shoot a shot just to see if he wants to come on, and it ended up being great. National championship at Clemson in 2021, and just a baller all around. George, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today, my man?
Doing well, man. I appreciate you taking the time to hear a little about my career and my journey. So I'm excited to talk about it.
And you know what? Despite everything that I mentioned a little bit before, I mean, you were always someone that was really interesting just in the college career, and then someone who ultimately made it in that MLS level, that top level, with Charlotte, and then also with Las Vegas too. So it's been something that I've looked forward to for a while. So the pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, no, it's been a journey. So it's cool to hear that people are following, and maybe I've had an impact on different people down the line. But it's cool because I just remember coming up through the youth ranks in high school. Like there were specific college players and professional players who I felt like were similar to me, who I followed, who weren't necessarily like the biggest players or anything, like I think similar to myself. And it was really cool that like I was able to, through social media, follow their career. So it's cool to hear that some people were following me as well.
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's goalkeeper, I mean, I'm not a goalkeeper. I used to be when I was younger, but not so much at a collegiate level. But you definitely count me in as one of those guys that's been following you for a little while.
It's good to hear, man.
So tell me about that though too. Like with looking up to certain goalkeepers, like you always. I know there was one of the kid at Duke right now is 6'7", and he came out. He's playing his last season. He went to the combine, but there's always those guys who are 6'1" that are just as impactful, and those were the guys that I'm sure you ended up looking up to understand certain playing styles, despite maybe not having a height advantage. I mean, I would love to be 6'1". That's just me personally, but sometimes it's looked at, from a goalkeeper's perspective as it's not tall enough. So from your experience going through being a goalkeeper at the highest level in American soccer, how do you make sure that you're able to use your height to your advantage in whatever way you can?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it on the head, just using it to your advantage. I think that was something that was impressed on me pretty early in the professional ranks. I think I went through a lot of youth and college, like maybe projecting some of my insecurities onto like my teammates and coaches, and like just almost walking around on my tippy toes all the time, like wanting and wishing to be a little bit taller. And one of the first coaches I had at Charlotte, a guy named Andy Kai, he just kind of told me that like maybe like in another life, height could have been something you'd use, but like as like a resourceful, like smart guy, and like hopefully a resourceful goalkeeper as well, like it's up to you to like take the skills that you have and make them exactly that, like skills and strengths. So like I'm a big believer in just that, playing to your strengths. Like as much as you want to be a well-rounded goalkeeper and like constantly attack your weaknesses, ultimately like there are facets of my game that I identify as strengths that can even be more heightened because of the size that I am. And like it's okay to like really lean into that and like go from strength to strength and make sure that those strengths like become not only strengths in my game, but like strengths in the MLS level and potentially like even further, rather than like maybe going away from your strengths, focusing on your weaknesses so that you're like this well-rounded goalkeeper, but you don't do anything like exceptionally well. And I think you've seen in the modern game, especially recently, there's a lot of ways to play goalkeeper. Like you've got, Thibaut Courtois, massive guy, just feels like he sticks his arm out and touches absolutely everything. And that's one way to do it. And then you've got the Rayas, the Sommers, the previously Iker Casillas of the world who are doing it a complete different way. But ultimately, I think it's like you have to, especially when we talk about defending the goal, you just have to cover the goal. Like the goal is not changing sizes for anybody. And if you cover the goal, I found that coaches don't really care how tall you are, what you say, what you do. They just don't want the ball to go in the back of the net.
Right. And so it comes down to a lot of it being, just to get into some of your strengths though too. One of them that I really liked is, or well, I'll say two right now, but distribution is certainly one of them. But then also it's been your agility and your physicality that you're able to make those athletic saves when you need to, and then get right back up. That lower center of gravity that you're able to have has made you all the more valuable, and that ultimately ends up being something that will get you drafted or signed by another team or want you to be on loan with a particular team. Like it will make you valuable regardless of what setting it ends up being. And that, again, going back to playing to your advantage, what we talked about, that ends up being more valuable than being the well-rounded keeper of having being a jack of all trades, but never being an expert in one or two of them that you've seen.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean it's definitely a balance because when we grow up, like you always have those goalkeepers who you look to and you look to emulate. And I think
Mm.
especially for younger goalkeepers coming up, that's like a really important thing to have. And it makes it fun. And that's like what dreaming and, you know, idolizing guys and seeing yourself in them in the future is all about. In another breath, I'd say like being the most authentic goalkeeper you can be in the terms of like seeing who you are and just like leaning fully into that and saying like I'm going to be the best version of who I can be is also really valuable. So that I think there's two ends of the extremes there. Like there's you shouldn't stray away from what other guys have done in the past and what makes them successful because that holds a lot of value. Um, but at the end of the day, like you are who you are and you bring things to the table that as a person and as a goalkeeper that nobody else brings. So you should look to highlight that.
That's very insightful. I really appreciate that. I hope, I mean, you talked about, the goalkeepers that you looked up to. I'm sure that just going back on the younger goalkeepers, being able to be a role model for them, I think just that sentiment that you were able to just, verbalize and tell me right now, I think that's something that a lot of people really could benefit from. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you appreciating it.
Of course. So, um, so now I want to get a bit of an insight on what this past season has looked like for you. It's been between Crown Legacy and Charlotte and Las Vegas, and a lot of this really started. I know first initially on the loan, and then being available to play September. I think the loan was the 11th, and then you were able to go right into the lights the 12th, and then still being there for about like 5 or 6 weeks with the lights, and then being able to have that role in that organization. But what has the year overall or the playing season looked like for you overall?
Yeah, no, this year overall, from an individual standpoint, was probably one of the more challenging I've had. As you get down the years in your career as a goalkeeper, um, there's a lot of value in training, but ultimately, like games is where you learn the most. So all goalkeepers, like as you get older, you're just trying to get games under your belt, trying to make the great saves, make the bad mistakes, just kind of like gain that experience that is so valued as a goalkeeper. So, and that was definitely a bit of a struggle. I mean, year to year, goalkeeper depth charts look like different things. Opinions can vary. And it's up to you to like kind of figure it out. Like that's the biggest thing that has kind of like fallen on me is like understanding like your career is your responsibility. And as much as you have important people in your life, in your club, in your corner, they're not going to do it for you. And you have to figure it out and find a way, whether that's, changing your training habits, changing your lifestyle habits, or potentially making a move to leave or requesting to leave or to go on loan. So whatever that looks like. But you definitely like at Charlotte, I had less personal success this year, even though, the team had great success and I was really happy to share that with them. But yeah, so that's kind of why down the stretch, like played some MLS Next Pro games, went on loan, played a couple USL Championship games. Like ultimately, I'll never say no to a game. And that's something like I kind of pride myself in is like I can drop the ego and like say, there's an opportunity for me to get better in this, whatever the level is. So, I'm more than willing. So any opportunities that come my way, I try to like examine them with a clear mind and see what I can get out of them and what I can give to whatever organization or team, whether it's Charlotte Crown Legacy or any team that potentially wants me to play for them.
And what's good about your contract situation, I believe you're still signed until the end of 2025, if I've got that correct.
Yeah, so I got my contract option taken. So I'm with Charlotte. Like, I'm under contract with Charlotte next year. But then after that, I'm a free agent.
Right. And so that, well, you know what what that ends up being, I mean, there's a lot of guys I know, and not to be talking about, so much about other players in particular, but being able to still have this extra year with the organization, they know what they're getting with you. It's just going to come down to being, available for some of these games when it ends up folding out. And the goal kicker situation always year to year, like you were saying, in any organization is volatile sometimes. But it's nice to be able to hear that there's at least that extra year in 2025 to be able to, again, provide that foundation for Charlotte and so that they understand what they've got going on with you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's about being consistent and providing the value in the way that you provide value. And goalkeeping is soccer in general, but goalkeeping is a game of opportunity. And if you stick around long enough, do the right things long enough, just give your absolute best, which is what I try to do every day. Like I feel like things usually shake out for you, whatever that looks like, as much as this can be like a very cruel and uncontrollable game. I'm a big believer if you keep doing the right thing, something will happen. So you never know when the next opportunity is around the corner. But as long as like my house is in order, hypothetically speaking or theoretically speaking, I can live with whatever, how it shakes out.
Yeah, well, and so how do you make sure that you end up developing that mindset? Because I know you've gone from in a few short years from 21 just to 24, you were the main guy out in Clemson, and there really was no question, sophomore, junior year, senior year, at least at Clemson. Then now going into this environment where, every day or every game, it's another opportunity to continue to prove yourself to these professional clubs in whatever capacity you may end up being. So I got to imagine that for some players, it ends up being, and then this is how I've even talked about some of it, not talked about, but through these conversations, I've learned that it becomes difficult sometimes to gain that mindset of understanding. Um, every week is just something that you can't take for granted, and if you do, then it ends up being a few steps back that you have to regain that next month, and it all ends up starting with mindset. How do you develop that exact thing, those same sentiments that you were talking about of understanding that keeping everything together up here will allow for the product on the pitch to be where you want it to be where it needs to be?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a good question. And it's definitely one that I'm still grappling with. I think I do a pretty good job, but like it's never a straight line, linear path. Like there is definitely days when, especially when you're facing the adversity, whether it's you can't get into the team, you're in the team and it goes poorly. Like it feels like the world is coming crashing down. But like I think it's important to know that that's normal, and anything that I'm feeling that any player at any stage of their career is feeling, like you're not alone in that. Countless people have faced this before, and some reacted really well and some reacted really poorly. Some went on to succeed and some went on to fail, but like it's not a novel situation. But for me, I mean, it's really important that I'm big on sports psychology, so I've got a sports psychologist here. I had one in college. Like just laying all my feelings out on the table, the situations I'm going through, reflecting on how I could have dealt with them better, like the current mindset I'm in. And a lot of times it's not that like my sports psychologist is providing like crazy new information. They just, because I give them the context and everything. It's more just like they're able to organize my thoughts and my perspectives, which is exactly that, what's most important. Because, you know, with the same set of facts of like my situation as a goalkeeper, like say particularly at Charlotte, I could be miserable or I could be happy, depending on, I could be ecstatic even, depending on like just the way that I approach it. As cliche as it sounds, like if say I go into training tomorrow, hypothetical training tomorrow, and I've got this impression in my head that I should be the starting goalkeeper, I should be starting every game, and then I go in and I'm put as second, and I do the whole training. It's the same exact training, everything geared to get me better, but I am pissed and miserable the whole time because I think I deserve to be first. I'm not going to play the game on the weekend. So that's my one scenario. Change that scenario to I'm the third or fourth string goalkeeper,
Mm.
and like I'm kind of like barely hanging into the team, and I get this chance to train with an MLS team with a fantastic goalkeeper coach to get better. Um, and like I view it as exactly that, like an opportunity to get better. Like I look around, I appreciate my teammates from all these different countries, from different levels that I'm able to train with, and ultimately that like I get to be a professional soccer player and not have a real job. Like that's the same set of facts,
Right.
but like the way I view it really determines not only like how I am interpreting my emotions throughout the day, but ultimately like my performance. Because like for me, when I'm focused on all of the uncontrollables and like I'm measuring myself up to the guy next to me, and I'm more worried about being him than just being like the best version of myself. I play worse. Like I absolutely play worse than if I'm playing for myself and playing just to go out and get better and like to enjoy it and like play, the game that we love so much. Like I feel freer and I'm able to like go into my automatic mind and just react, which is ultimately what goalkeeping is. So like I think that's the biggest thing for me is like being very on top of like my mindfulness, my sports psychology, like mental toughness, all the cliche things you think about. But like the second you let some of these things slip away and you lean like too much into just your emotions uncontrollably, I think it's easy to get like swept away because like the adversity is going to come.
Right.
Um, so like if you're not ready for it and you don't have the frame of mind to deal with it, it can be too much. And to your point, you said, in college, like especially for a couple years, like you're right, I was the guy who was pretty unquestionably playing the games. And it's been a different role so far in Charlotte. Like I've gotten really good opportunities to play some games at different times. Um, but it's definitely a burden and like a hard thing to do for years to prepare every week, do every gym session, do everything, sleep, everything like I am playing the game of the weekend. And very rarely so far in my career have I been playing the game of the weekend, like maybe 10 or 15 times out of 100 possible games. So um, it definitely takes mental fortitude, but with like the right perspective and seeing that all of this is building me towards something in the future and I'm laying the foundation, it's not such a hard decision.
Right. No, and that's fascinating. I mean, to be able to go in and have that, um, to develop that mindset at least over time, and just to hear your perspective of how this goes about, um, is interesting. But so now applying that same thing to getting the news that you're going to Las Vegas, and so your first start ends up being against Birmingham, and not to get too far into the start right now, but with that new change, how did you end up applying that mindset again? Was it really just the same, you know, ideology of just understanding, okay, this is a new opportunity where I could be going in? If you would mind, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I'd come off a run of games playing with Crown Legacy where I thought I had played really well.
Mm.
And it was definitely right. You're definitely right. It was a change of scenery, and it was pretty abrupt. But I think like ultimately in those situations, less is more. Realizing like my preparation is done. I've prepared not only like that week or that year, but like my entire life. All these like every situation leads to the next one and is like building towards it. And that's like where I lean a lot in my preparation is like if I'm preparing all the time, even when I don't know what I'm preparing for. When that chance comes, whatever it is, whoever it's with, you don't feel so nervous because you know you've done all that you can, and then all you have to do is give your best effort on the day. And like you can always make a mistake. That's goalkeeping, and you can always not have your best day. But I just think like I can sleep better at night knowing I give everything, and you let the chips fall how they do.
No, fascinating. And it just seems like nothing, even if you recognize that a certain situation may become problematic, or maybe something that may phase you even a moment, I think just going back to the same mindset and these same ideas that you've talked about are something that's so crucial to what is going to make you a successful keeper in whatever situation ends up being able to stick. And still being able to have opportunities with Crown Legacy and Las Vegas with Birmingham and then against Oakland Roots. But then even this new season having this season under your belt, but also now with 2025, still being able to go back again. It's almost like this idea of you talking about just goalkeeping as a whole. It's all about getting in those games and getting those reps. These same little trials and tests in your career also are something that now you have under your belt that you know how to experience because of this past season moving into next year.
Yeah. No, it's all fuel. I mean, not only in goalkeeping, but in life. Like you just don't really control the things that happen. You control how you react to them. So uh I think like when bad things happen to me, like they happen to everybody, like everybody has those moments of panic. I have those moments of panic. From very elite individuals to like low performing individuals in any category of life. Everybody feels that. But I think in my mind, the people who are like I would put more in the box of high performers are people who are like able to have like these like previously set upon like self-evident truths for themselves of like this is who I am, this is what I do, this is the path that I am on, and I'm not going to stray from it regardless. Um, and that doesn't mean you're necessarily rigid in everything in your life, but like I think it's important to have specific hills that you're willing to die on and that you're not going to change because you believe in them so much. So like ultimately, just in the context of the game, like if I make a mistake in a game or I have a terrible game, which has happened many times before and will happen many times again, unfortunately, um, like there's moments when you want to freak out and you want to scrap it and you want to do things new and you want to like make something bigger into it or be nervous for the next game. But like ultimately, my like truths that I talk about are like the only thing to do is to release the past and like continue to give my best effort. And if that last game was a result of not giving my best effort, that's something that I'm really not happy with, and I should examine that. But if I gave my best effort and I made mistakes, that's life. It's goalkeeping, and if anything, I learned about it, so I hopefully won't make that mistake again, or I'll make it less, and it should make me better. So, if with like a little bit of distance from it, which is hard in the moment, but like with some reflection, luckily as a goalkeeper, you get less time for reflection. Um, I feel like it's easy to wrap your head around a lot of these things, and like they're not as bad as they seem.
So now, could I ask, have you ever seen yourself playing another position, at least when you were younger? And so I don't know a whole lot about your youth career, but it seems like with just how you're relaying the information just about having a short memory, but also being reflective on certain little things. I mean, I've heard countless people say you got to have a goldfish memory if you're gonna be a keeper. But it doesn't tell the full story about still being able to find self-improvement, but also self-reflection moving forward and not allowing those, still remembering, but not allowing those moments to consume you for the rest of the match or for the rest of the week or bleeding into the next week. So, I mean, is that something that you've seen other outfield players have to take on, or what has your leadership looked like, with Clemson though as well? Because I'm sure this is something that a lot of people have benefited from just having this kind of conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as far as like my leadership style, because like I always like to tout myself as somewhat of a leader, whether at the bare minimum, like just being a leader to myself, which like I think is probably like first and foremost. And if I don't have like my own things in order, I think it's disrespectful and not really achievable to go out and try to lead others. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed over time. Like any guy who I play with at Clemson would definitely tell you, like it would be easy to say that I was a good leader because like down the stretch we did pretty well. But like I know a lot of those guys did not like me very much at the time. Like some of them were my friends, but a lot of them I think were just like, oh my God, this guy's always on our back. Because I think my leadership at that time was like, I think I have a really dialed in process. So you're going to do my process and we'll have success because you're going to do things like I do. And if you don't, there's issues, which like in some ways would work because I think like generally my process was pretty good. But like that doesn't really leave much room for like empathy or understanding of like there's different types of people in the world and you need different types of personalities, especially like in a team in any sport. Like you would not want a team full of me. That would just not one, it would not be a high performing team. It wouldn't be like a productive team. It just would be bad. So I think that's been something I've been really fortunate to take on since I've been at Charlotte, because obviously you come in and you kind of go from like the top of the totem pole where maybe you can say and do some of these things because like what are these guys going to say to me? I am a high performer on the team, so they're more likely to listen. You come to Charlotte where initially you're pretty much at the bottom of the totem pole, and I like to think I've built up some credibility because of the way I do things, and I'm one of the longest tenured players at Charlotte, even though like I'm still a younger player. I've been there since the very start, which a lot of guys can't say. Um, but I've been able to like just watch a little bit more, which I think is like really important to observe how leaders, whether they're coaches, whether they're captains, whether leaders in their position group, guys who are just maybe stationed at the time a little bit higher than me because they're playing or they're in power or whatever, how they deal with some of these situations, whether they succeed or they fail. Because ultimately, like I think the best way to learn from situations is doing it yourself. But if you don't have that luxury, um, you know, there's a million people around you every single day who are also learning lessons. So I think it's wasted if you don't like learn from their lessons as well and be observational. So I try to do that, and I hope at some point again I get the chance to lead from the top of an organization, and I plan on that happening. But still, for the moment, I think whether it's me being a leader of the young guys, being a leader within the goalkeepers group, if being a guy who shows up and does his job every day, um, being a leader. I was at the Players Association meeting last week in Arizona and like learning more about that so that I can educate younger guys about that. Um, it's all just about like I said, it's like continually building the foundation because I think, who knows how my career could go. It could go a million ways, but um, like I intend for the outcomes to match the process that I think I have sooner than later. And there'll be a lot of people who don't know the things that I do and how I am day to day, and they'll think, oh, wow, this just happened. But that's never how anything happens for anybody. Like days and years, days, months, years, they lead up to these things. And very rarely do you have sustained success without like a lot of really aggressive patience on the front end.
Right. Fascinating. And it comes down to the dichotomy of learning for yourself and being a student of the game while also understanding that there is a certain role that you play and you have to play to be able to, again, like you were talking about, go into the meeting with the PA and being able to educate younger guys. It's the dichotomy that sometimes uh well, I wouldn't know for sure, but I have to imagine that sometimes it becomes difficult to know when you have to be one or the other. Is there any difficulty in doing that with your perspective? And would you mind telling me about it?
Always. Yeah. I mean, I think that's just kind of the way like I view life. Like ultimately I think all of the best things in life like are kind of in the middle of a scale of two extremes. And like constantly you're just fighting the battle of straying too far to that extreme. Like whether, you talk about being a guy in training, you've got guys in training who go full, drill sergeant and they're screaming, maybe like kicking the post, which I've been there before, so I'm not going to speak down upon it. Kicking the post, cursing guys out, can't get a breath in. And some coaches will romanticize that, but for me, that feels like too much. And then you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is like complete apathy. Guys who don't care whether they win or lose a small-sided game, like, and that's usually completely frowned upon. I would say that both of those extremes are not great, and you want to find somewhere in the middle where you care a lot, but like ultimately losing control of your emotions, even if they are maybe more beneficial emotions, it's not productive. So I think like me, like any player, like you're constantly in all of these situations trying to find that happy medium between two extremes. So as much as like you said, everybody's got a role, and there's a time for me to maybe maximize my role, and there's a time to say something and to act and to you know die on a hill. Feel like if you understand my speech there, like
Yeah.
someone does something and I say, you know what, this is the standard of the club, that this isn't how we do things. But then there's another time where maybe I'd like to say something, but it's not my place, and I have to understand my role, and my role maybe doesn't dictate that. So there's never any like right way to do it. It's just you have to do your best, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy. You make mistakes, you learn from it, and you hopefully refine the process.
So I gotta ask, where did your soccer journey end up starting? I've really found it a great pleasure to be able to hear your perspective. Not only is this something that, the more that you hear different perspectives and different mindsets on, again, whether it being a soccer goalkeeper, I'm going to implement that in doing more of these interviews or doing more of certain other work and other facets of life. But I want to get a sense of where your soccer journey started. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love to hear your first memories of it and then ultimately moving up into Clemson and, maybe where you started to learn a bit of this mindset, or if it's been something that you really developed in the professional game, that's fine. But I want to know how your mindset on soccer has changed, whether it being in the competitive nature or understanding how far you really would be able to take this. I would love to hear your soccer youth story.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I guess going all the way back, it would be like probably like 5 years old, like playing just like in Salvation Army leagues. I was definitely a striker, just banging goals. Like that's all that mattered, and I was amazing. So I wish I could have seen that out in a different life. But yeah, my parents knew nothing about soccer. Just kind of like threw me in all the rec leagues, just because that's what you do as a youth in America. My dad's love was baseball, so my love was baseball. Like people always ask me, like, "Oh, like, was this your dream?" My dream was to be in the MLB. That was my dream. That was my dad's dream for me. Like when I fell asleep at night, I imagined being an MLB baseball player. That's what I wanted to do. And I also love soccer. Like I would say, like for me, like a lot of people say, like I always know it's gonna be a professional soccer player, blah blah blah. Like I love the game of soccer, which I've come to love. But like initially for me, it was definitely like I think I fell more in love with like I really like being good at something. And I loved the journey of becoming really good at something. And like, how can I like tinker with this? And how can I, maximize this? Like, I feel like even before I identified what it was, like from a young age, that's what I was trying to do. Like, I just loved taking a step up and taking a step up and taking a step up, whether that was like process wise of like actually getting better and maybe not necessarily being recognized for it, or like the actual outcome of like making a higher team, making a higher team. Can I do this? Can I do this? I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I played soccer and baseball until I was like 14. And then I had to quit baseball because the soccer team I was on made me like I couldn't play two sports at the same time. And I took like 2 years to tell my dad that I was quitting. I was so scared, and he was so sad. Oh, he was so sad. Um, but no, he's the biggest fan now, so it's fine. But he's still more of a baseball guy, and I'm still a big baseball fan, New York Mets fan, unfortunately. But more fortunately, hopefully in the future. But I think I started playing goalkeeper at like 10, 11. I don't really have like a goalkeeper origin story. I don't know. I think I was just like a little bit crazy and was fine at it. So I started playing, and I started like I think when like I really started getting into goalkeeping was like I started doing like personal training with this guy Ziggy. His name is Nenad Zigante. He's a crazy Croatian old man, but everybody calls him Ziggy. He's from like upstate. Well, he's not. He's from Croatia, but he like was living in upstate New York. I think he was. You go to Cornell? Is that where you go?
Yeah, yeah.
I think he was the goalkeeper coach at Cornell at some point. I don't know. He was like Cornell, like he was. I know he was living in Ithaca. I don't know, but
His name sounds familiar. I won't lie to you.
yeah, no, he's a legend. He's an absolute legend. Like he's still. I don't live in Raleigh where I grew up anymore. But he's still like out on the field from dusk to dawn. Has a flip cell phone that he sometimes leaves on the field overnight on accident, and like you just won't be able to reach him. And he'll just put it top ends on me. The ball is goes slower and slower every year because he's 60 something years old now. And both of his knees, I think he has like torn everything in both knees. But he'll just like slowly guide the ball into the upper 90 and just like never fails to like just destroy my ego every time I train with him. But no, so I started training with him around 12, and we would just like train every day. We trained every day, whether it was like thunderstorm. Like I remember I remember the first time it thunderstormed, and I was like, surely, like I'm not getting out of this car right now, Dad. Like it is like there's a thunderstorm on top of us, and he was just like Ziggy was just like, no, like of course, why would we not train? I was like, all right, I guess we're going. It's like there's like the field's terrible, terrible grass field called Davis Drive in Raleigh, North Carolina, public grass field, and it's like swamp with water. Like we probably didn't even. It was probably a terrible training session, but like just went through with it because that's what you do. Like you just train and you get better. That's kind of what he instilled in me. To like the same rain, and then it would freeze overnight. He would tell me wear tennis shoes today because the cleats are going to slide. I didn't listen to him. Wear the cleats. It's like an ice skating rink on the field. I'm like trying to train, dive around on ice. Like, ugh. But no, those are some of the best memories when I look back because I think like it kind of instilled toughness in me because I think I was like a pretty mentally weak kid. Like when failure hit, like I was just like so upset about it, which is partially why baseball didn't work out because I'd go like 2 for 4 in a game and I'd be pissed that I got out twice, even though like 500 batting average, like if you could do that, you'd be a Hall of Famer. But yeah, no, I mean, I think as you can kind of hear, it's just like a journey of just figuring things out. And I wasn't like any sort of prodigy. I don't think I was very good, but I think like as I got a little bit older, like maybe it's like probably like around 14 or 15, I always like loved training, but I just started training more and more, whether it was like doing a private session with Ziggy or, you know, training at the club Castle, which was like my club growing up in Raleigh. And like I started to identify like this strong correlation between like even if I'm like kind of putzing around, if I just go out on the field and I train for long enough, I will figure something out and I will get better. And if I spend enough hours out there, even if I'm not being efficient, which God knows I was not efficient out there for hours and hours, like could have been a lot more efficient. But if you're out there for long enough, like you'll figure something out. If you do enough reps, you get better. Like you just do. I think it gets harder when you get up maybe to the level where I'm at now, where the margins are so small. But like when you're younger, if you just show up, just keep showing up, just keep showing up more than anybody else, like you make big strides. So I was like on the lower teams at Castle always growing up. But I think around I got cut from the academy team because it was like the US SDA, whatever academy team. On U14, I got cut twice. And then on U16, I got cut again. Like I would like get invited to try out. I mean, I don't even think I got invited to the first few tryouts for 14s, but I remember the last 14s and the first 16s, I definitely got cut. And I didn't even like expect to make it. I don't know. I just like the other kids were more highly touted and were probably just better. Um, and then I finally, when I was 16, I made it on the academy team as the third goalkeeper. Um, which I don't know why they picked 3 goalkeepers, but I think like my previous club coach had just like seen that I was like a maniac and was like very, very dedicated. And he just like begged them, like, all right, just like give him a look, give him a look. So I think that was kind of like the start. Like I remember making that team, like we got an email like late at night one night that I made the team after the tryout. And like regardless of what happens, I think like with my family, that'll be like one of the happiest memories we ever had. Just because like we were all so happy because my parents knew like how badly I wanted it for a few years, and it felt like a really big step towards like potentially playing in college because like we had a really good academy and all the kids would go to like D1 schools. Um, and I remember the time for the email to come passed, and I like went to sleep, and it was like 5 p.m. I like went to sleep because I was like just like sad sleep, like the worst. And my dad like woke me up screaming because like the email had gone to a spam email or something. And he's like, he's like, it was like, oh my God, it was like something out of a movie. My dad's like, oh, he's like, buddy, you did it, you did it. But no, really good memories. And then from then it felt like a lot more linear, like a lot of things that like the vast majority of things that could have gone right went right. But I mean, I attribute that definitely to a lot of people around me and like my support group. But I also like just got a bit crazy. I think like would just, I think, I think the first year I did academy normal and I was still in high school. And then the next year they were like doing some experimental part-time high school where you only had to do like 10 hours online. And I had gotten like a very small sniff that I could train with like the USL team. It was NASL at the time.
Right.
Team in the mornings. I'd gotten a very small sniff that I could potentially do that. So of course I convinced my parents to like free up my mornings forever and let me drop out of traditional high school, which was like at the start an absolute no. Then
Mm.
like I asked them repetitively, and slowly got to like no, and then it was like okay, like we'll look at it. Then it like eventually got them to somehow do it, which both my parents are college professors, so that was like a big ask.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So my
Probably the
junior
most surprising
year,
thing you've told me.
yeah, no, yeah, junior year went to like kind of like online high school, started training with the pro team in the morning. So I would like train with the pro team in the morning, and then I would go to school from that would be from like I don't know, you get there at like 9, it'd be like 10 to 12. Then I'd go to school from like 1 to 3 or something. I'd go to the club, do gym, and then I would do like at 3:45 or 4 would be like a goalkeeper session, and then my team session would be at like 4:30 to 6. Then I'd like hover around and see if I could train with like the U18s after. Like I was putting in crazy hours. Like there's no way I could do that with my body now. Also, it was really, I don't know, I probably a testament to the lack of communication at the club at the time because like somebody should have been talking to somebody saying like, hey, like we got to load manage this guy because now they're like with the academy kids, they are big on load management. Like they can't do anything. I was training like 4 times a day. Nobody was saying anything to anyone. I was like, this is amazing. Um, but yeah, I mean that kind of just went the way it did for a little while, and then I think I was getting better at like a really good rate, and then like I started playing a lot in academy, and by like the end of that, like maybe halfway through that year, I was playing all the time with the academy, and then I made the U18s next year. I think for very early on, committed to Clemson, and then like things just kind of started like falling really quick. Like I like got called in the national team, which was like my biggest dream
Mhm.
growing up. Like I saw even from like the earliest age of U14, kids get called to the national team, and I was like obsessed with that. Like that was my thing. So like that was another really big thing when I got called in like U20 my senior year a couple of times. I was like that felt like the craziest thing ever. Um, and then yeah, I guess after that it was kind of Clemson, which is like could be its whole own segment, but it's like I'll never stop talking about how like transformative of a place that was for me and how I wouldn't have had to go any other way from being really terrible the first year to like having really 3 really good years personally and as a team. And capping it off, winning a big trophy is not a bad way either. So
And so maybe this transition, the way that I asked about your first youth journey was a little jarring. I won't lie. I realized I was trying to figure out the best way to word it. Maybe I didn't, but um, the reason I end up asking about that is because a lot of times it ends up being these youth coaches and these first people that get you interested in just being great at something, even if it's not just soccer. I'm not just echoing your thoughts just because that's how it ended up being, but um, you know, one little facet, and that's how it ends up sparking this huge interest and this chain reaction. I think a lot of where you've been able to develop this mind, and I don't want to be speaking so much for you, but at least just the way that I've been able to piece this story together is just that there's been so many people who have shown you how far that work ethic really can get you. And in whatever opportunity it could have been, whether it's thunderstorming or you're getting your fourth section, I'm sure there's some days where you've had 3 or 4 or 5 sessions in a day, but when in whatever opportunity that it was, you were going to figure out those ways to get better. And even despite certain results may not be going your way, there's always been that idea that okay, well, at the end of today, I've been better in something or some kind of regard. And so that's why I wanted to just give you the space to talk about that youth experience. And by the way, I know you talked about being Clemson, an entirely different segment. I want to hear every bit of it. I want to hear if it was 2 hours long, if it's 20 minutes, I want to hear every part. But I knew I want to just add my thoughts in on that.
yeah, yeah, no, I think when you're younger, for sure, like it's definitely formative moments and the people who are around you at those times and like the words they say. Like I remember a lot of that stuff, and it was definitely formative and it planted seeds. So that's like why it's really important to surround yourself with the right people. And I think I was lucky because, I've got fantastic family. That's not well, that is lucky, but like that's my family. But they were great to put me around people who weren't going to coddle me and were going to tell me the way it was. And like ultimately, like if you want things in the world that a lot of people want and not many people can have, you have to do some different different things than other people. You got to swim upstream.
100%. And so how much did those 4 years of Clemson really formulate this experience? I mean, we've talked about the U.S. national team, or those call-ups that you've been able to have at the U20 level, but then moving into Clemson, what was the recruitment like? And then give me, I want to know as much of your experience as you're willing to tell us about Clemson. I'll let you go on as long or as little as you'd like on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just a big chunk of my life. So there's so much to say, but I mean, I definitely came in like as like a pretty brash, like cocky, uh, I think that was maybe like because as much as there's always a plus side to a lot of things, there's always like the negative other side. So like I think I was working so hard and I was working so hard and I was seeing so many results that I was like, oh my God, I can have whatever I want. Like I can actually have anything. Um, and like I kind of think I like let everybody know about that all the time. And like I called the national team at the end. A lot of those kids, it's not quite to the point where it was now, where like if you were making the national team, you're already a pro. Um, but like a lot of those kids were still going pro, especially like around 18, 19, 20, or were already pros. So like I thought that I should be a pro at that time. So like I remember like I was like not proud to go to Clemson at the end because all these kids had been going pro and I was like, I didn't want to post anything on my social media. Like I just was like I have to go, because like I don't have any good pro opportunities. Which like just shows I was just an idiot. But I came in and I think like it was like as much as it was confidence, like it was like false confidence. Like I think I knew I wasn't good enough and it wasn't backed by like the right things. It was just like I wanted people to think that I believed that I was that guy. Um, and I think it was really good that like the first year I was immediately met with some adversity. Like they had a fifth year transfer come in who was like on like the like Mac Herman watch list and all that. So like I was not playing at the start. There was no chance. And I kind of like dawned on me a little bit. And like it wasn't the most jarring adversity because like it still felt like this was like part of the plan. Like a lot of goalies, a lot of kids don't play their freshman year, especially like at a pretty elite program. So I was like, this is fine. But I was still like, I mean, I was not happy. Like you go from playing every game to not playing. But I think it was like good just to like get smacked in the face a little bit with that adversity. And like I needed to like get knocked down a few blocks just to like maybe build back up the right way. But yeah, no, didn't play a ton the first year, still played like some. So couldn't really complain too much about it. I think I played like 5 or 6 games. And we were really bad. We were really like definitely one of the worst years in like Clemson soccer history. I think we were like seven. I actually know exactly what we were because it was terrible. 7-9-1. We were 7-9-1. Our season ended on Halloween as early as it possibly could in the first round at Notre Dame. So our season was done so early. We took a week off, and then we started training again. Like the season was still going on. That's how much time we had left. And like Coach Noonan was not happy, and he let us hear about it. And we were just like doing gym workouts. Like we were doing I think like the foundation of the year was like we didn't have like a mentally tough team. And I think partially that was true. I think there were other factors that led to it, but like we were like as a team, but also like from coaching staff, from um strength conditioning, like they were like very much so wanted to root out this mental weakness. So like we would just do like these like physical challenges, like one-on-one or something. We called it mano a mano. And we would just do them until like our bodies collapsed. Like it was just, it's good memories looking back, but at the time, oh my God, it was miserable. It was not fun. It was not a fun end to my first semester. But like all of it was pretty formative for me of like, not only me, but also the other guys in the team of like, this is how bad you have to want to win. And I don't think maybe like the most productive way is to like have punishments for losing looking back, but like it instilled in us like, oh my God, we want to win. Not only because we want to win, but also because like we don't want, our lives to look like this. We don't want to be like a losing soccer team and everything that comes with that. So like coming into the next year, that was probably the best team that I ever had in college. We were very good in 2019. Like we had Robbie Robinson was on the team. He won the Mac Herman. Like I think like our front three had like 18 goals and 10 assists and like 11 goals and 11 assists and like 14 goals and 8 assists. Like every single one could have like won the Herman in like a different year. Like it was like crazy. Uh, but like we would beat down on teams. Like we would win like 8-0, like 7-2, 8-4. Like we were like beating down on teams because we were like never took our foot off the gas pedal because we were still like, oh my God, last year can never happen ever again.
Right.
Um, and that was my first year playing. So maybe it was good to like go immediately into a team that was very high performing. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the first step of like a full season of playing. And we were really good. We were really good. We made it to the Elite Eight, and we lost to Stanford at penalties. Coach Noonan took me out for penalties. Still to this day will always be a sore subject for me. But uh, he made up for it in the future, so it's fine. But no, I even think that was good because like I think like a consistent theme was like I probably needed to be like knocked down sometimes. Like I think that's good for me because like if I get too high, like I don't know, you need to stay grounded. Like you don't need to think that you are something that you're not. So it's like it's always good to be grounded. So that was devastating loss. I was actually with a couple of buddies I knew from who were on the Stanford soccer team, who were on that team. So they were giving me a little grief about it. But yeah, so that was a tough way to end that season, but we were really good. And I knew that we were building in the right way because we had such a good team. Lost a few guys in the draft. I remember that year. And then 2020 was like a COVID year. Again, we were really good. And that was like, I think after that season, I'd been made a captain. So like that really, I think like was a was a really big like proud moment for me. And it contributed to like a lot of the success I had later just because like I started to not play for myself. Like I started to play for something bigger than myself. Like I love the boys on the team. And then also like it really meant something to me to like wear the tiger paw and wear the orange and purple. And like going into Clemson, like it was more of like a transactional thing. Like if they were a good team, I wanted to have success, so I went to Clemson. But like after playing a season and then becoming one of the captains of the team, it was like, oh my God, like I care about this school. I care about the community. So I was kind of like sucked into the cult of it all. Went on to have a good season. We won the ACC that year, which was like our first taste of success. We won the ACC tournament. And like that felt like such a big deal at the time, just because like that's one of the biggest trophies to win in college soccer. And we were able to like beat Pitt in the final, who like Pitt was like that was the start of them like really ramping up. They were a really, really good team. We were a really good team as well. But it was during COVID. There was nobody in the stands, but I don't care at all. It was awesome. Still, I look back on like that joy might have been more in different ways than winning the national championship. Not necessarily more, but just different in that like we hadn't really had a ton of success. And this was like the first time, and it's like, oh my God, like this is actually happening. Like you hear the countdown, you're like, oh my God, we actually won like a big trophy. We had won the regular season in 2019, so that was also like a really big trophy because it was like the first time. It was like, oh my God, we put something in the cabinet for Clemson. But then I guess moving on from that, we had really wished that because we thought we were playing really well that there was a national tournament then, but there wasn't because of COVID spring season. So we lost a couple more guys again in the draft. We lost like two guys in the first round in the first 5 picks. And then we lost a guy to homegrown. So it was like, everyone's like, oh, are we going to be able to do it again? And then we went through the spring. We had another really good season, but like we were definitely not as good. But we went to the tournament. We were the number one overall seed going to the tournament. And then
Right. Yep.
we somehow got matched up with Marshall. I don't know how Marshall was as low of a seed as they were because that team was really good. But yeah, I got matched up with them. They won in penalties, which is like kind of crazy that like I think they were the better team in the game. But like it's kind of crazy that came down to penalties because you look at that like if we win that game in penalties, which we very well could have because we went ahead in the penalty shootout, like who knows where the Marshall soccer dynasty that has kind of come from this would be. But Yeah, no, I also got taken out for that PK shootout, which was that was like one of the lowest lows. Like I was like very, very devastated when that happened because I felt like I was like a leader of the team, and I was like mad at Coach Noonan. I was also like disappointed in myself that I even let it get to that point where like um I could potentially be taken out because I had a really good season, but like we do penalties in training, and I think it was like kind of a self-fulfilling thing where like I was really nervous about not saving penalties in training because I knew he had taken me out the year prior.
Right.
So I was like trying so hard and I was like chasing to save penalties because I was like, I just really don't want him to take me out for penalties. Um, and I think like that just made it, I don't know. I think it was just a weird thing. And I was holding on a little bit too tight, but I don't know. I still wouldn't agree with the decision, but took me out for penalties. Fair play. We lose again. That was also again devastating, but I don't know, all of the just because we did win at the end, like all of like the kind of like not negative emotions, but like frustrated emotions, like you can write them off. It's fine because it all ended up working in the end. And then yeah, I mean, I think like being in all of these situations, not only for me but for like the group of guys who were older guys, contributed to what happened last year, and then hopefully what happened in 2023, and then what will happen in the future. Because like ultimately if your program and then the guys who are in the program are in these situations consistently, like you're not surprised when you're in them and the moment doesn't get like the best of you. Like I think that's why like you look at like last night, Vermont won the national championship. That is so awesome because as much as like they've had success, a little bit of success in the last few years, none of those guys have ever been in that situation or like in big games like that. So like when you see they win, it's like unadulterated joy, which is almost like, I mean, I thought we were pretty unadulterated in our joy in 2021 because, we hadn't really been in the Final Four. We hadn't won one before. But like when I was watching on TV and they won in 2023, Clemson did like they almost didn't look like excited. They like predict like they knew they were going to win, and you're like, oh my god, that's getting like almost feels like it's becoming machine, which is cool to see. But it's different.
Yeah.
It's different. But yeah, I guess that kind of leads into my senior year, which like of the 3 years, I thought we were definitely like the least talented.
Hmm.
We had like I thought we had a very good back line. That was like really all seniors and like old guys. And then like we had some really good pieces going forward, but we had like both of our nines tore their knees up, like couldn't even play at all. One of them being a captain who was like a pretty key leader. And like we started off really hot, I think like 7 or 8-0, but like we're not playing the best teams. And then as we got into AC play, like really struggled in the middle. And then we kind of came home like pretty strong. And then I remember we lost in the semifinal to Duke of the AC championship at home. And we like outshot them like 22-1 or something. And their one shot was a PK and they won 1-0. And we were like devastated by that because like you just kind of realize like for a very like senior driven team, it's like, oh my God, we have like one chance at that. But ultimately, we're pretty thankful that happened because like I think it's really hard to win both the ACC and the NCAA because like there's a natural like taking your foot off the gas pedal when you win a big trophy already and you feel like you have that in your pocket. Like you don't have to try. Like well, you always try, but like you don't have to win the national championship. But if you don't win the ACC, it feels like you have to win the national championship to have like any sort of successful year. Which especially for Clemson, like especially now, anything but winning is not good enough, or you're going to be you're going to be disappointed. There's no result other than that, but that's good enough. So yeah, I mean, we kind of went through the tournament, and I mean, you talked about like at what point we knew what was kind of happening. I distinctly remember. I distinctly remember being incredibly frustrated after the Duke game because I was like, we weren't good enough going forward. We weren't creative enough. Like teams were sitting in a low block against us, and we'd have all the possession, and we could not score. And I was like really frustrated by that. Because like if giving up one goal meant we were going to lose, like those are small margins and big responsibility for the defensive unit. And then we played Denver in the first round, and I thought we played like pretty well. I mean, it was again Denver was not as good as us, and they knew they were not as good as us, and they were playing for penalties like the entire game, just sitting in. Like we were just trying to cross it and they're just heading him away. They've got all these big bodies in the box. And I was just watching the game and I was like, this is who we're going to be. Like, we're not going to be able to score. And like, we got a very questionable PK call in overtime and we scored like a golden goal penalty in overtime. And obviously like celebrate, but I was like, there, we can't go forward like this. Like, we're not going to win. Like, we are not good enough. We're not scoring enough goals. Like, we just got a little bit lucky. It was just like, I just was not super, um, yeah, I didn't know how it was going to go. I distinctly remember talking to my sports psychologist and I was like, I think like I'm a pretty, empirical guy. Like, I go off observation and like, I don't totally believe that we could do this right now because I don't think we're playing up to the standards that we need to. Like, I'm not going to like lie to myself. That's not really how I operate. Like, the preparation and the process has to meet, a certain threshold for you to have even a chance at the outcome. Like, that doesn't guarantee you the outcome. It just gives you a chance at it. And then I think we were like the 8 seed. So we still had some home games. We played Kentucky, who was the 9 seed. And they were, again, pretty good. They were pretty good. I thought they were debatably better than us on the day, but scored like a um, deflection goal, and then we defended really well throughout the game. Kind of switched off, and they scored with like 4 or 5 minutes left or something. And then we score with a minute left, or like just under a minute left. Like a pretty like crazy goal. Like, it was like our fullback like pulls up to cross it from like way too far, hits a pretty bad cross like into the people, like just into like a mass of people at the top of the box. And this little midfielder we had, Alvaro Gomez, like not a goal scorer by any means, but like usually a defensive guy, just like super consistent player, like closes his eyes and like sticks his foot out and takes like the most beautiful touch, beating the line of pressure into goal. And then like just dinks the goalie like so calm. And it was like pandemonium. Like, we went insane, but it was like, these are some of the bounces that have to go your way to win. As much as you put yourself in really good situations, like, you need a little bit of luck. It's just what it is. So, and that, I mean, that was a perfect like microcosm of what I thought the tournament was for us, is like a little bit of luck, and then you have an exceptionally skilled player who takes advantage of the opportunity. So yeah, we went on to win that game. Win that game 2-1. And then we were in the lead eight, and it's still like, I mean, it felt like, I remember remarking to like my best friend, who was a really good player on the team, Oscar Agron at the time. He was center back. Like, I think we've done pretty well. Like, this is like better than I thought we were capable of doing, like with how we're playing at the moment. Like, that we made the elite eight. I was like, I think that like we have done a good job to get this far. I remember saying that, and we were playing Oregon State, and I knew they were going to be good. But like, when we went and played them, they were unreal. That team was so good.
They were the 1 seed that year, I remember, no?
They were the 1 seed, and but they had a few guys who have bounced around the pros as well, who were like, they were just so technical. And I think on the day as well, they were playing like fantastic. Like, I remember 10 minutes in, I looked to, Oscar was the center back, and I was like, we are in trouble. Like, we are in trouble right now. Like, I distinctly remember one play. It was like a diag. The left back hits a diag to the opposite winger, who side volleyed it under the line like an early cross, and the striker like slid and like missed the ball by like that much, and it was like an open goal. It was a tap in, and I was just like, oh my god, like, I don't know. I think they're just much better than us. Which, like, realistically, they were the best team in college soccer. I thought. And we somehow they scored a goal, which I didn't think was a goal. I didn't think it went over the line. I thought I saved it for it went over the line, but whatever. Call it a goal. We're down 1-0 at halftime, and their midfield was really good. And I remember our coach had been like, "Yeah, I set up the midfield wrong. Like, I think we were playing like a diamond, and they were playing a box, or they were playing a box, and we were playing a diamond. Like, they were just had so much time on the ball, and like we weren't set up the right way." We changed that in the second half. It was much more competitive. They were still really good, but it was much more competitive. And we, again, got a little bit bailed out. Like, they dragged down somebody in the box on like a cross that was, the goalkeeper was coming to claim, but they dragged somebody down. So it's a penalty. They scored the penalty, 1-1. think there were like some close calls in overtime. Like I think they scored, got a call back because they fouled somebody, hit the post. Like it's like dicey. And then you go to PKs, and PKs are a little bit of a toss up. And then Coach Noonan left me in, so I had to prove to him that he was wrong. So yeah, so we won in PKs. And I remember that being like that was when it became like kind of real. And I that was like as far as like joy that I felt, like we won on me saving a PK, like the team, like you're like running and team chasing you, like that's like felt like finally what it felt like to score a goal in like a big game as a striker, like felt like amazing. So I understand why the strikers have all their stupid, celebrations and all that, because that's a cool feeling. But yeah, that was like when it felt like real. Like we're going to the Final Four, and it's like, okay, this is 2 games away now. Like anybody can win 2 games. Like
Yeah.
you know, like now, and I think that's kind of how it goes probably for all these teams. It's like if you look at like the beasts of the NCAA tournament as what it is, which is like you have to win like 5 games or 6 games depending on if you don't get a bye. Like that's and every game's against a good team. That's really hard to look at like as a thing, like as just a whole body of work. But if you just attack it game by game, you just you just like 2 weeks later and you're like, oh, we're like here. And then you're anybody can win one game. You win one game and then you're the next game and then eventually in the national championship and you just have to outcompete that team on the day and you get the big trophy. So yeah, so we went to the College Cup and we had played Notre Dame earlier in the year and like Notre Dame is always what Notre Dame is, which is like they're pretty simple, but they're really good at what they do. But like we felt good in that like we weren't playing like we didn't think we were going to play anybody as good as Oregon State because they were like tactically really good, technically really good. It's like all right, we just need to like out bully Notre Dame. So we felt decent about that. Um, play against them. I mean, they had some good players. They had Jacqueline up top, who's a really good striker. He's still in MLS, but yeah, I mean, that was like kind of an ugly game, to be honest. We scored like a pretty long range, a good goal from one of our midfielders, which is what we had been relying on. We were playing like a really crazy formation. We were playing like a 4-2-2-2 because we didn't have any more attacking players. We just had really good midfielders. So we were just trying to put as many midfielders on the field as possible. And we'd like kind of get width from the fullbacks, kind of get width from like the middle two midfielders, but it was like very narrow. It was very narrow. It was like a FIFA thing. But yeah, so again, very gritty game. We like they scored on it. They got a PK in the first half and they scored and I don't know what happened, but I dove and I like really banged myself up like it hurt like I think I landed like on my hip bone and it I just basically got like a hip pointer, which is like it's basically like something like football players get when like running backs get smoked in the side. It's like you like partially tear or like really deeply bruise your like oblique and it just like swells up really crazy and it was just like terrible terrible pain and I didn't know what was happening. I thought I like ruptured my spleen or something. Like I thought something serious was going on, but I talked to the train like I went down for a second and then I talked to the trainers. They were like, hey, it's up to you. I mean, I was like, all right, let's just see. Like I couldn't talk during the game. Like I couldn't yell because like I couldn't flex my core. So like I couldn't like project my voice louder than like a talking level. So I go in at halftime and I'm like, you guys have to figure this out or I'm not gonna go play. So we had like the orthopedic surgeon with us and he injected me like all on my left side with some numbing agent, but it wasn't like super strong. But it made me numb. Like it made me numb from probably like halfway up my thigh to like up here. And I don't know, it was like fine. And then the game went longer and we went to overtime and it started to wear off and I went back to the bench and I was like, please tell me like you can like give me another shot. And they're like, there's no time. Like we don't go back to the locker room in between, like there's no time. So you just kind of gotta suck it up. So, you know, go through overtime. I was like kind of struggling, but I luckily didn't have to dive to my left. The guy like made a decent save on my right, like made a decent 1v1 save. And then we went to PKs and they were like, do you want to stay in or do you want to like come out? Cause like you're hurting. It's like, no, no chance. Like I'm staying in for sure. And I I was like, I didn't know if they knew if I was hurt or not, but I was like limping around pretty good. So I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna, and I love, talking smack. So
Mm.
I'm telling them I can't dive to my left. Like I'm telling like the Notre Dame players, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't dive to my left. Like it's hurting so badly. I can't dive. Like shoot it there. You scored. Like just talking smack.
Mhm.
And the first one I say that, and the first one had to be retaken. He went down the middle and it had to be retaken because somebody threw something as he shot. I don't know. That was actually a good stroke of fortune from us, but somebody threw like a Clemson beanbag onto the goal as so they made him retake it. He shoots down the middle again, and I dive to the left, and I like landed again. And but I like kind of caught myself, but I landed again. I was like, oh my god, no way. So I was like, I'm selling out to the right. I'm gonna dive right on every single one.
God.
So yeah, I just dove right the rest of the time. And then I should have saved one. I should have saved one more. One like kind of like went off my hand and went in, and I was like, oh god, that could be bad. Like that's the worst. You only get a few chances to save PKs.
Mhm.
And then we were really good at PKs at that point, so we were making all ours. And then I saved the fourth, the fourth one, and we went first. So I saved the fourth one, and then they made they made the fifth one, or we made the fifth one, and then it was like crazy celebrations. And then that was I think before like the Final Four, we had framed it pretty well that it was like, all right, we're not coming here to like win one game. Like we need to win out. So it was like we celebrated, but it wasn't like we were all like, all right, there's nothing to celebrate. Like we have to win, in 2 days or whatever. So I like when I went back to the hotel, I was like, I was way more hurt than I actually thought I was. I was like, I knew that I was going to try and play the next game because there's no way I wasn't going to play that game. But like, I was like, I'm like maybe at 40% right now. Like this is so bad. We, there was only also the structure of the tournament was terrible at the time. We played on Friday and the finals on Sunday. Played Friday late at night and
Right.
the finals on Sunday at noon. That's not enough recovery time, but we're staying in Raleigh in between, and we do like every recovery modality that you could possibly do, like ice tub, cryo, sauna, everything. Like probably ice bath, too much. But yeah, we don't even train because a bunch of guys are banged up, and we kind of just do like a walkthrough. And then yeah, I mean the game was early the next morning. I remember we woke up in the morning, we watched. I don't remember if it was Abu Dhabi or whatever, but I don't know if you're a Formula One fan, but it was the Grand Prix where like they had like the very questionable holdup where like they let Verstappen like unlap himself on some of like the other cars so
Yeah,
that he had like one lap for the championship to beat Lewis. And this is when Lewis had won a bunch in a row. So it was like the start of Verstappen won. And I was like, I don't know why, but that gives me the worst feeling about this game. I was like, that feels terrible. I was like, oh, that because I was like, I wanted Lewis to win, but yeah, that was early in the morning, and then we had kind of like game plan the day before that they were going to get stronger drugs for me to numb me up, and then they were gonna like strap like a mattress pad to my side or something, and just
oh,
like so yeah, they do all that. I go out for the warm up, and they said also, do you want the drugs before the warm up or do you want them after the warm up? It's like after the warm up because I want it to last as long as possible, just in case we go to penalties or something.
right.
But I couldn't raise my hands above my head, so I was not warm. I just like jogged back and forth a couple times, caught a couple volleys, no dives, was out there for like 10 minutes. I was like, all right, I'm going to go back in. Like, I can't do anything. Go in, get the injection, which was stronger. And that made my whole left side, like up almost to my shoulder. Like I was scared it's going to go down my arm, numb, down to like past my knee. I couldn't feel anything. I was like, oh.
The hell?
Um, and it lasted until I woke up the next morning. So it was really strong. But no, I mean, that game was easy. I didn't really do anything. And you hate to see the other goalkeeper made a mistake, but the goalkeeper made a mistake like 20 seconds in the game. It was like a good omen. Things were going well. Go up 1-0. And then that was like the only game in the tournament where I was like, oh, we actually played really well, I thought. And we like showed our quality and we were thoroughly the better team.
Right.
All the rest of the games was, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a testament to like what I said earlier. Like when guys are consistently in these positions, and then you have like a wealth of experience, and we had like started, I thought, to like build a pretty good machine at Clemson. Like you, it's not like you can control if things fall your way, but you make it more likely that things will fall your way. And I think that speaks testaments to like a lot of the people that came before us, came before me, who like, in 2015 they lost the national championship game to Stanford. but like they got to that, and that kind of provides the belief that like, oh, we can do that.
Right.
Because like that's half of it is like you get to these games and like you can't be too like intimidated. You can't be like, oh my god, like I can't see us winning. You have to see in your head like there's a chance of us winning, or else like it's tough that it's going to happen. Which like that's why I think it's all the more impressive that like Vermont won last night, because like there's no precedent for that. Their team, what's the furthest they made it? Like Elite Eight or something, 316, and
Right.
like you're forging your own path. Like there's no path to follow, which that's why at Clemson I was very fortunate. We had a path to follow. We had coaches who had been there before. And then, after us, like we went in 21 and then the teams in 22, 23, 24, they have the path before them of like, oh, we've done this before. We have guys on our team who have done this before. There's no reason we can't do this. And then you win again in 23. That team I thought was unbelievable. They won, a double.
Hmm.
And now it's like you hope that players there think, oh, okay, this is the expectation now. It's not that you hope to win a national championship. It's like, this is a very attainable goal for us at the start of the year. And it's not maybe as attainable as they make it out to be, but like, hopefully that's what it means to be a Clemson soccer player now. Is like you are, as much as all these teams say they're competing for national championships, like you are competing to win trophies. That is what you're competing to do. Like, and the expectation is nothing less than that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think I came out much more prepared for like not only life but professional soccer, from not only like a training aspect and like my actual level, but just like capacity to deal with things, which is all that life I think really is. It's like when bad things happen, how do you deal with them? How do you react? How do you make the best of it? When really good things happen, how do you deal with it and not take it too far and like get back to work? So yeah, I can't say enough about the coaches, all the guys there, and also it was really fun. And like that's I only talk about on the field stuff, but like I will always advocate for a lot of these kids now. I know it's like a big trend to go pro early, but like if you're one of those fringe guys and nobody is going to pay you a lot of money or there's not a pathway to go forward, not only do you learn a lot, you get your college degree, like you learn how to socialize with people, you learn like you grow from kind of a boy to hopefully a man leaving, and also get to play like some pretty high level soccer along the way. So I think it's still like a very valid and relevant pathway in U.S. soccer, as you can see by like the amount of college soccer players that are still making an impact in MLS. Um, so I'm excited to see not only how Clemson but how college soccer continues to develop, because it's just a ever changing pathway.
Um, so I'll be honest, there's really not much I really should add or would want to add really to your experience. I thought it was
I'm a professional
I
yapper.
really sorry.
I'm a professional yapper as well as goalkeeper.
Well, then you're perfect for an interview. I know I got the right person to come on then. I mean, um, but I mean, I had a phenomenal time just listening to that entire section of just, and then it never ceases to amaze me how much guys like you, even having been removed from college for a few years, there still is that being able to remember every little game and every moment and every one of these little conversations and maybe I'm speaking maybe my experience my inexperience of having not played college soccer is showing in that, and it's just something that is a part of your life no matter what it ends up being. But I always love being able to listen back to you recall so much of this memory. I almost wish we had like six of your other teammates to be able to hear this whole thing. That's eventually how I want to bring this out, to just get, I mean, you, however many other of the national championship guys, I want to go out and we just hear the story of the season back again from that. But um I mean, phenomenal. I really appreciate the insight on that. And again, I think this goes back to having this recollection of every little moment, how much a little bit of luck and this skill, this constant development leads into just finding what I think many people would consider, regardless of what ends up following out here, a very successful college soccer career, a very successful professional career up to this point, and it's definitely made you the kind of person and player that you are today.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, but it's yeah, I think like you recall a little the details, like especially the fond ones, because like that's what this is ultimately all about. Like it's supposed to be fun and like it's about the connections you make with guys. And yeah, I mean I'm sure I'll have some of these same stories about like, Charlotte and other professional teams that, I'll play for throughout my time. But there is something different about college soccer. Like when you're like living with guys and like they're your best friends, it's like that is like an aspect that people don't understand about college soccer unless you're in it. Like, and when you win as well, like it's even better. But like it's just a different thing. You just become so close, and it's so close knit. It's a little bit indescribable, but yeah, I mean, I would say that most people within college soccer, whether they won or not,
Yeah.
have memories like that because it's like when you go through high highs and low lows and everything in between, and
Right.
in the context of the field, off the field, it's like, I mean, that's what college is in general for a lot of people, but I think college sports is like even a heightened sense of that.
And so now looking back on that time at Clemson and aside from the on-field work that you've been able to put in and even looking broadly at what you've been able to put in off the pitch, how much of that do you think has allowed for this growth of the person that we've talked about? I want to see just the full lineage of how we've gotten, bridging the college and then into the professional environment where Clemson is that kind of program where you're able to have these with Coach Noonan, as you've talked about, and many of your other teammates, there was this one common goal, and everyone had their own individual mindsets of being able to figure out where, post Clemson, what that would look like. But with reflecting again, just going back on this off the field work, how did you end up developing uh, going back to realizing how much that this work would end up helping you become a better man and a better person moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think probably a lot of that goes to Coach Noonan. I mean, whether I understood it or not, it might have fallen a little bit on deaf ears at the start, but like he was always like a phrase he would always use is like being other centered, like being other centered all the time, in everything you do. And like I think we talked about that a lot in the context of the team, but I think at some point like that impacted me like pretty strongly and like has ultimately put me more on a trajectory of like throughout my later years of college and now and moving forward. Like for me, the most fulfilling aspects of life are like living a life of service and trying to make other people's lives like easier, better, understanding like whatever platform I have at any point. Like I can help people with that, whether that's like with advocacy or like understanding, like personally or like full groups of people or like tangibly, like financially if I can help them, if I can help raise money for them through my teammates, myself, through people who I've influence over because I play for a professional soccer team. There's like so many ways to serve, and as much as I serve myself on like a daily basis, and my job is to like take care of my body, take care of myself, make sure that I'm becoming like the best soccer player I can be on a daily basis. Like I have so much room and so much time to like try and help other people. And I think like the seeds of that were definitely planted at Clemson. And I think that was probably realized when I figured out like, okay, when I play for myself, I can be good. But if I play for like the boys around me and I play for the school and I play for the community, how much better I can play and like how much easier it is to get into the flow state. Because like you're not so worried about the little things. Like you almost get this like bird's eye view. And off the field, like in life, I think that gives you better perspective. Like when you're around people that are less fortunate, who are going through tough times, like seeing, what you have is really not so bad. And not only is it not so bad, it's like fantastic. And you have like a responsibility to help and serve other people.
And now fast forward to where you are today in just your own professional environment, understanding that you're doing so much more than just for yourself, for your coaches, your teammates, those who you may be able to help personally, your family as well. How do you go and continue to be better each day? What feeds this mindset other than I know I got to get better. I know I got to put everything in every day, but what are the things that continue to drive you to again, well, today, I mean, coming off of a youth career to college and then to now, being able to continue to be the best person that you can every day. What continues to drive you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just ultimately comes back to like my purpose, which I kind of define as maximizing my potential as right now as a goalkeeper, but ultimately like just as a man, and like not necessarily that we all have like a predetermined ceiling. I think it's like an ever shifting ceiling, but like whatever opportunities are afforded to me, which like I think I've been really lucky through my family, through the game, through, a multitude of things to be like afforded really good opportunities. Like I'd be doing the people I love a disservice if I didn't like absolutely maximize them. So I think that means like learning constantly in any facet of life. I think I'm constantly striving to learn, whether it's, watching back film, whether I'm analyzing, whether I'm picking people's brains, whether I'm just reflecting on my performances. Like I'm constantly learning within, the game of soccer, but like in life, whether it's, reading, talking to people, like learning about history, learning about things that are happening now, current events, you know, possible people that I can help, talking to people who are different from me. Like I think it's all part of it. And I think it's like, it all comes down to like, ultimately there's always more and better you can do. Um, and it's important that I don't torture myself with that, because like, if you truly view that as like, you're never done, you'll never rest, and you'll be like, tirelessly kind of like worrying. But, like to a certain extent, like you, I think it's important to constantly stave off complacency. Like complacency is ultimately the enemy. And like, not only in soccer, but like in life, just understanding like where, like just seeing a better bird's eye view of where I am now, and that there's a lot of room for me to go. And that's not a worrying thing. That's an exciting thing. Like that's what life is about. Like this journey of pitfalls and successes and like good and bad. And I honestly try not to assign too much like meaning to good and bad. Like I tried to just see these occurrences throughout as just like exactly what they are, like learning and more notches in the belt. And um yeah, I mean, not to get like too philosophical here, but it's all part of the curriculum. It's all part of the journey. And I try to, it's tough to enjoy it all because some things are inherently bad. But like you have to feel them all, and like you should relish feeling it all, because a lot of the things that I know I'm able to feel, other people aren't able to feel, whether they be the high highs or the low lows.
And that's all come throughout different experiences that you've talked about though too. You know, maybe not understanding how to go about. I mean, I'll be honest, there's really not much else I really could add to that you haven't covered already. So I won't try to make something up at this point. But um, I know that that wasn't a great response to go back to this, but ultimately what I was trying to establish though too is just um, we're not living in movies anymore. We're not living with our heads in the clouds anymore, where you can't assign good or bad. And to go a little further onto that conversation, like you talked about, but uh, being able to learn and gain these experiences ultimately widen just the ability to be able to make better choices moving forward. And so sometimes, even now as we're both still young guys, I'm a sophomore in college, and there's still so much that I really haven't been able to see. As much as I want to entertain these certain thought processes, it's going to come down to being able to have the experience to understand, okay, well, how does this make me feel? But what's more importantly the best way to move forward, and how can I apply that to things in the future?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think there's no wrong way within the context of sport or life to go about these things, as long as, for me, like I'll say it over and over again, like
Mm.
I don't understand when people don't try their best. Like I think I could do a better job of that. But like for me, that is like there's reasons why people cannot give their best. I know that. Not everybody comes from like the background that I do, and thinks the way that I do. Not that it's better or worse, but just like I have a unique point of view because I am me. Um, but like that is what I expect from the people I love, and that's what I expect for myself, is to like give my very best and to try to serve other people and try to be like a kind person. And it's not necessarily easy, but it's simple. Like I don't think I have to worry about too much other than that. And that's what I would hope for like most of the people that are around me, is like, as you figure it out, you're going to make a ton of mistakes, but like just keep trying. That's like what is kind of expected of you. Like just keep showing up, keep it's not like you're intentionally like learning or like trialing and experimenting, but like keep doing your best, and along like the road you're going to learn a lot of things by yourself, you're going to change a lot of things, and like you're never going to be a finished product until the day you die. So I know, I'm sure I could look back on like these videos now or any video I've had in 5 years, 10 years, I know in like 30 or 40 years, and be like, oh, that guy was an idiot and he was very like small minded and didn't have perspective. But that's like how life is. You gain experience and you see the bigger picture. And that's how it should be.
I mean, I really appreciate just being able to hear your entire thought process on all of this, George. It's been a pleasure to be able to talk with you. I'm a lot of everything that I had written down, but I always want to leave this open in case there's anything that I didn't touch on, or if there's anything else that you want to continue talking about. Again, I've had a phenomenal time here, and I want to leave the space to continue going on about whatever we want to talk about. But um, I wanted to take the break now and just say thank you for joining me, and I'll leave you the time now to discuss anything else. But again, thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it. I don't know exactly what, I kind of did like a little bit of research, but I'm not like completely sure what the demographic of the podcast listener is. But is it like younger players or like just kind of?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's guys who are college players themselves. So 18 to 24 is roughly the range. It ends up skewing a little bit more male, and we're US based, but we do even have listeners in some parts of Europe or Canada as well. But yeah, mostly young guys, 18 to 25.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess I would just leave with like a little bit of a message of like, I know like as much as I don't always feel like it, because like I am frustrated with um certain situations, and like as much as you have like limited success, the ceiling always raises, and like you just see people who are having more success than you. Like I know that I have accomplished some things that like a lot of other people would want to accomplish. Um, and that like wherever you are, like in youth soccer or in college, like a lot of these things, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like it, are within your reach. And like you don't have to be like some special talented player. Like if you just like continue to show up and give your best, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a Herculean effort. Like it's well within your reach. Because I remember like growing up thinking and following players that were probably like in a similar, or even maybe like lower station than myself, strictly within the game speaking, and thinking like that they had something that I didn't have, or that they were like special. And like nobody is special. Everybody's just trying their best and like figuring it out. And like especially with social media, everybody gets the highlight reel, and you'll think that like people are different from you, and they might be different from you, but they're not better than you. Um, Nobody is. So there's no point to put me or anybody on a pedestal, because like we're worrying now, we were worrying then, we didn't know if we were going to make it now. Even the people that will come on and say like that they always knew, they did not always know. They're probably lying. They might have believed strongly, but like everybody has doubts, and that's normal. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just something I would want to hear when I was younger. But yeah, I echo, what you said. I appreciate you giving me the platform to come on and talk and recall some fond memories.
It's been a pleasure, and all the best to you. You've always got a supporter in me and the rest of Kickball the rest of the way. But if you ever need anything, ever feel free to reach out. I'll probably be hitting you up in whether it's next season or season after that to do a part two. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I wish nothing but the best for you.
Yeah, sounds good, dude. I appreciate it. You gotta come check it out in Charlotte one of these days.
Oh my gosh, look. Once I start actually being able to make money on some of these episodes, no, I'm kidding. We're working our way out over there, but uh, look, it's not as far away as we might think.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, I appreciate it, brother.